Welcome back to this week's Sister Scoop. We have some interesting, and I feel like I say this all the time, but we do have some interesting news topics, some diverse news topics from this week. And the first is Marvel turns 85 years old.
It's crazy to think about, especially because I feel like ever since Iron Man, like it's become just this like cultural phenomenon. And like obviously for it to survive 85 years, like it's been around, it's been, an important part of culture. I mean, Spider-Man, the Fantastic Four, like these are even pre-MCU, these are household names and pieces of IP. But especially since the MCU has become what it is, it's like Marvel is just like this huge thing, and now people kind of hate it because this huge thing, which I think is dumb, but it's still kind of amazing. And like even when they were going through challenges, in the 90s and selling off their characters, and that's why we have the issues with Spider-Man that we have, it's just a testament to the amazing characters that they have and the people behind it that are able to last this long. Like, go Marvel. That's all I have to say. Go Marvel.
Yeah, I mean, and I think you kind of talk about the MCU for fans like us who, I mean, I wasn't a speck of dust when the MCU started, but I was not probably cognitively all there. I was like 6 or 7. So I think for people like us, most of our lives have taken up the MCU, not just as the fans we are, but even when we were casual fans. Like I still remember getting Iron Man on like DVD from Blockbuster,
Oof.
renting that movie when we were like 7 and 10 years old. So thinking about that, obviously Marvel's older than the MCU, but it's hard to separate the two for when you're our ages, but to think, holy crap, because for 65 of those years, actually a little more, they were doing all these comics. They've been successful for all these years. I mean, we have relatives who are around that age. Like that's crazy to me. So I give them a round of applause. They did put out some videos. I was kind of intrigued because the only video I saw, at least, and maybe I'm wrong, was like Daredevil cast and Ironheart cast, and I'm blanking on the last one, but it was like newer stuff, and I was so thrown off because I was like, "Oh, are you saving all the rest of it for 100? Like, is that what we're doing?"
Well, I think there were two videos because I definitely saw what you saw on social, and then I was stalking their YouTube, actually prepping for another episode that we're about to hit record on. And they do have on their YouTube like a really nice like homage piece that has stuff about the comics and the MCU up to this date. And every time T'Challa came on the screen, I cried a little bit, and I was like, I am getting so emotional. And it was just like the whole thing of like, this is where we started, this is where we are, this is where we're going. Cause it did have the footage from some of the, projects that are most upcoming.
Right.
And it was just, as a fan, I was like, I am not crying, you jerk. You're crying, you jerk. Like, it was just, if you're a fan, I don't know how you watch it with dry eyes. I really don't. So definitely check it out because it's a good just homage to everything that Marvel is and does. It has like the animated shows from when we were kids, like the whole gamut. It's just beautiful. Like, what a great universe it is.
And to wrap that up, here's to another 85 years. Will I be here to see it? I don't know. We'll see how
Maybe.
technology goes. Maybe I'd still have to be well over 100 by a couple years, but we'll see. Moving on to our next topic. Jon Watts left to do his own thing.
Yeah. So we all know Jon Watts, the director of the Spider Man trilogy, the Home trilogy, or whatever you want to call it, the one that I can't get straight, basically, when it comes to titles. But he was obviously the director of the first three. He is not directing Spider Man 4. And he also, at one point, was going to direct Fantastic Four and stepped back from that. And now it's kind of come out. The reason that he's doing that is he is directing his own kind of original film with George Clooney and Brad Pitt. And I forget what it's called, but it's premiering at the Venice Film Festival right now. And yeah, I just think it's interesting, kind of good to know why he stepped away from some of the projects that I think we were all expecting him or that he was, expected to work on. But at the same time, like, happy that he got to use the MCU as a springboard. I definitely didn't know who he was prior to the MCU, and now he's getting to work with two of the biggest movie stars in the world. So all the love to him. I hope his movie does really well, but just wanted to give that context for everyone because we're not going to see Jon Watts' name attached to an MCU film for a while because he's not attached to anything anymore.
See, I'm gonna look at it from the other angle because, like, good for him, but I think you covered that. My whole thing's going to be I'll be intrigued how, especially Spider Man specifically, goes. I mean, I think there's a lot going on with Spider Man 4. We don't need to breach some of that. There was a whole blog post that we did about Spider Man 4 and some of the rumors that have been coming out about it. But I think it'll be very interesting because very rarely do we have one director do a whole trilogy in the MCU. We had the Russo brothers come close with Cap.
Peyton Reed with Ant-Man, though we all saw what happened with the third one.
Yeah, let's say successfully. Let's say that. We haven't really had one stay around for all three and do it successfully. Obviously, I think that he did it with Spider-Man. I think it was all three were well done. I think it's Far From Home. People are kind of like about, and I'm like, I thought it was a fine movie. I don't really understand the issue. So regardless, I think it was a solid trilogy. I think it'll be interesting then from the MCU perspective when you're going to have a new director with this character. I'm not sure where that's going to go. I mean, he handled Spider-Man well. He did a great job with Tom Holland's story. And so, you know, could we have a Ragnarok moment or could we have a Thor Love and Thunder moment? Like, I guess we're just going to have to see.
Yeah, I do think it's the perfect time to switch directors, no, though, like knowing that Spider-Man had such a strong switch from, the end of No Way Home to where he's going to be in Spider-Man 4, whatever that title may be. Hopefully nothing with home in it. But, whatever that is, I do think that it could be an interesting time for someone to take it on and really play into that comic background that I think we all complained, he didn't have in the first three. I think Jon brought in a fresh perspective. Great. We wanted to differentiate it from the two other guys who have played the character this decade or within the
Yeah.
last decade. 2 decades. Sorry, Toby. 2 decades. And, now we get someone who might be, I'm hoping, crossing my fingers, it's someone who's really into the comic book Spider-Man and the comic book Peter Parker and is going to show that love to some of those beats that we definitely were missing in the first trilogy. I don't think Jon Watts was incapable of doing that, but I think it could be interesting to get a little bit of a different flavor from someone who might, really be into the comic book version of the character.
Yeah, I agree. I think it opens the doors. And to your point, I don't think the timing's bad at all. I think this is the time to do it. The character's going a new direction, or hopefully. And so I think this is the time to do it for sure. It's just going to be interesting to see if it's going to be successful or not. But moving into our last point, I'm excited about this one because I love me some Dafne Keen, but she wants in for the long haul, and I don't disagree. I understand we have Hugh, and I understand we've promised Hugh he's going to be 90 doing this role. But if I can't have Calverine, I want Dafne Keen to be 616s, or if it can't be, but like eventually 616s, because again, Secret Wars is our caveat to everything here. I want that to be the Wolverine in our universe moving forward. I think it'd be super cool. We know her already. We saw her as a kid. She is technically Logan's kid. And then obviously she was back for Deadpool and Wolverine. I want her, and I hope they bring her back, and I hope they keep her.
Yeah, I think Dafne really impressed me coming back and just slipping back into Laura,
Yes.
the character of Laura, so well. You never know. I mean, it's been almost 10 years. She was a child. To be able to recreate those same mannerisms the way that she did, it was like they literally aged her up in 5 minutes. She was incredible. I think she absolutely earned another go at the character. I'm going to play, a little bit more of I want to see a like true Logan Wolverine in the MCU because I want them to go really classic.
Fair.
Like I think they played a little fast and loose, not so much with the older ones, the I'm sorry, not the McAvoy, the Patrick Stewart version. I think they were a little, closer to the comics than the McAvoy ones obviously were. But I'm hoping that the MCU kind of goes that direction too, of being a little bit more like classic. This is your lineup. This is your basically the X-Men 97 lineup is kind of what I want. And so because of that, I don't necessarily want her to be the MCU's main Wolverine, but I do want her in future films, however that makes sense to bring her in. And I think if they're going to be able to tell larger and weirder X-Men stories, because obviously the X-Men stories get strange. That's how she literally becomes alive is like some of the weird experimentation that goes on mutants or against mutants, and I hope that those types of themes get to be explored because they have the time to do that, and it makes sense for her to naturally come in or however that might work. I really want a Logan as our guy.
Listen, I don't disagree in the long run. I mean, I even made my little caveat. I want Calverine. Give me him immediately. He's screen tested already. Everybody loved and ate up the 10 seconds he was on that screen. I would prefer him, but I do have to say, I think there's something when you have this story already built. It's like Sam to me. Sam taking on the cat mantle. It wasn't some random person, and not that obviously a version of Logan would be random completely, but we also don't have to reintroduce the character, because I think that's what's going to be hard with the X-Men is you're going to have to reintroduce, and this would be the second time, third if you're counting X-Men 97, fourth actually if you're counting the original X-Men show, because not everybody watched that. Some people did, some people didn't. So really there are four different, slightly different iterations of the X-Men that exist. So, and then obviously Deadpool and Wolverine and like MOM all have their thing. Like there's a lot going on. So I feel like going a different direction, but still having those breadcrumbs to tie into her origin still would make it make a lot of sense. And just, I think she's really received well. If I'm
Yeah.
being honest, I think, you know something that works. What if you bring somebody in that doesn't? I think that's like my thought process.
For sure. And for that reason, I absolutely want to see her reprise the role. And I hope that she gets the opportunity to do that because she, in my mind, has proven she is Laura. Whether she's 7 or 20, it doesn't matter. That girl is it. So she's X-23 for as long as she wants the role. She wants it for the rest of her life. And at like 19, she could play it for the next 40 years. So
Yeah.
Marvel, put the papers, let's sign the contract, let's go. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree. But with that, that has been this week's Sister Scoop. Stick around again for next week. We'll be back with more Marvel news. And obviously, go listen to our podcast as well because there's some great episodes coming out. See you guys.